It's Ron Reader digs the universe. I'm Ron Reader, and this is Ron Reader Digs the Universe. And tonight, Evangelicals and the ultimate sexual pleasure. Evangelical leader and now former president of super right-wing Liberty University, Jerry Falwell Jr. has been making a lot of news lately. You may recall his father, Jerry Falwell Sr., also an evangelical leader and founder of Liberty University. He blamed 9/11 on the pagans and the abortionists and the feminists and the gays and the lesbians. What a piece of work he was, and what a piece of work his son is. Junior, the first big-time evangelical leader to endorse Trump back in 2015, is caught up in a pretty wild sex scandal like so many other evangelical leaders before him. So far, I think it's safe to say that we know Junior watched a cabana boy bang his hot wife Becky on multiple occasions. Big scandal, but there might be more. The big question about which many are speculating, because the cabana boy has some substantial connections to the gay party scene in Miami, is whether Junior did it with the cabana boy too. Personally, I just assume that's the case. Regardless, this kind of thing happens in the evangelical world all the time, and as a recovering Southern Baptist, I definitely have some thoughts on the matter. I quit evangelicalism in the late 80s when I, just kind of quit going to church when I was in college. And I think that before that, I got an earlier and more mainstream sense of Christian sexuality from my evangelical experience. Anti-sex, as is traditional with Christians, but not batshit fucking crazy. There were some weird hints at the time of what was to come, but they were outliers. I got out right before things started getting goofy. Because by the mid-1990s, evangelicals had birthed the purity movement with their purity balls, where teen girls literally date their fathers who give them purity rings, like wedding rings, all incest and shit. Heavy implications of sexual ownership, that sex is dirty, that vaginas are used pieces of chewing gum, and so on. The 90s is when the evangelicals became so obsessed with controlling sexuality that sex was all they could and can today think about. Meanwhile, at the same time, when new drugs made HIV no longer a death sentence and the gay rights movement was able to turn its energies to gay marriage, evangelical fascination with gay sex shot into the red. I mean, there was always some weirdness there, always the Ned Flanders types fooling themselves, always the whispers about a friend of a friend of a friend turning to that lifestyle, that sinful lifestyle. And that's it right there. Lifestyle. Evangelicals have never accepted the notion of gayness as human identity. To them, it's all about the sex act, all about being so lustful that godly sex becomes boring, and you hunger more and more for the strange and bizarre. To them, it's all about sexual, selfish gratification. To the evangelicals, then, homosexuality must necessarily be the ultimate sexual pleasure. And that's why evangelicals think about gay sex all the time, and the deeper you are into evangelicalism, the more you think about gay sex. And that's why so many preachers and their hypocritical power-tripping arrogance keep getting caught at the glory hole. That brings me back to Junior sitting in the corner of his bedroom masturbating furiously while the presumably bisexual Cabana Boy bangs the bejesus out of hot wife Becky. We don't know that Junior joined in and indulged himself with the ultimate sexual pleasure. Cabana Boy's not saying it went that far. But you know what? It would be just fine if Junior engaged in pagan carnal dick rituals because, you know, maybe that really is the ultimate sexual pleasure. And it would also, and it's also just fine, you know, for him to watch his wife getting banged by another dude in the first place. Anything that's safe between consenting adults, just fine. No, Junior's problem isn't the sex. Rather, it's the total moral and cognitive breakdown that happens when you bet your entire life on applying patriarchal, Bronze Age, paranoid, superstitious tribal values to the modern world, which must necessarily always fail. Jerry Falwell Jr. is a liar, a hypocrite, a Nazi, a demagogue, an all-around oppressive asshole, and now it's starting to look like he might also be an embezzler. It would have been so much easier if he just quit evangelicalism, got a nice gig selling insurance or something, and spent the weekends prowling the swinger clubs with his hot wife Becky. Instead, he's just an idiot criminal who may very well get to receive the ultimate sexual pleasure in prison, whether he wants to or not. Jesus God, the evangelicals are so fucked up. I'm Ron Reeder, and this has been Ron Reeder Digs the Universe. Join me, Ron Reeder, again next week for another episode of Ron Reeder Digs the Universe. The ultimate sexual pleasure.